It's getting edgy, it's getting extremely tight. Things look now like they will be extremely difficult then as we get towards the end of the voting cycle then with regards to the United States. Voting does, rather should I say, ballot counting does continue out in the United States, so it gets very interesting from here, where the markets themselves will react in a particular way and whether the final votes will be weighted upon. It does seem that Donald Trump doesn't seem to think so, and he has decided instead to claim victory. While earlier on, of course, Democratic challenger Joe Biden said that he is very confident. He did, however, not gain the seats out in Florida. Texas at some point looked like it was going blue, but managed to stay red. Ohio, of course, as well, also going the way of the Republicans. Let's take a look now at how Britain's interest in the United States election results are going. Let's cross now to London, should I say. Holly Hudson standing by with a little bit of news for us here. Holly, it's certainly an interesting race, isn't it? We thought that the Democrats would actually have perhaps a blue wave, but now we're waiting on somewhat of that rust belt, or what is traditionally known as that blue wall, but it does not look to be coming forward the way we had hoped.
Yes, this certainly is a tighter race than everybody expected, including the pollsters. The results still very unclear, but as you say, Donald Trump has already falsely claimed victory and says that voting should stop, and has accused his opponents of fraud. He says that he will take the result to the Supreme Court. Now, we keep hearing this word unprecedented used at the moment, don't we? But this is really unprecedented, what we're seeing unfold over in America. And it is those claims by the incumbent president, by Donald Trump, that really have provoked the strongest reaction so far here in the UK amongst politicians and by the UK government. We have seen the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, doing the rounds this morning in broadcast studios, and when quizzed on the president's comments on those claims of victory and fraud by Donald Trump, he said that he is confident, he has faith in the US electoral system, that they will provide a definitive result. So he is now being criticised by the opposition party Labour and by other opposition MPs for failing to stand up, as they have said, to condemn Trump's comments, which they believe undermines American democracy. We've heard from Dominic Raab's counterpart Lisa Nandy, who is the shadow foreign secretary, coming out with some pretty strong responses, saying those votes have to be counted and respected, and Britain should be clear on that, as they would be, say, if this was an African country. If a incumbent president falsely claimed victory and called for voting to be stopped, then Britain would stand up against that particular president. Now, this is, of course, we have seen the UK government been accused of this before. Boris Johnson accused of not standing up to Donald Trump over his response to the George Floyd protests. But of course, the UK at the moment walking a very tricky tightrope with the US. Relations have been tested over the last 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency, and they know that the special relationship really does hang in the balance going forward with the UK severing its ties with the EU. It needs those alliances, it needs the special relationship more than ever, so they'll be watching very closely to see the results of this race.
Yeah, some reaction then out of London, perhaps getting a sense from perhaps political leaders. Have they come out and said anything at present, whether it be with regards to Donald Trump's comments? Yes, but also with regards to the race and how they see things faring and what that means for the European economies as well.
Well, yes, in Europe, we've seen some comments from several different parties. For example, I'll read some of them here for you. The French finance minister said the US has not been a friendly partner, and that regardless of who wins, it's time for Europeans to assume their responsibilities. And we've been hearing a lot of that sort of mood music come out of other European politicians as well in response to this, in some ways sort of suggesting that Europe will push forward with its own autonomy. We know, of course, that Donald Trump's America First policies have harmed their relationship with the US, the bloc's relationship with the US over the past 4 years. For example, read some more for you here. Germany Economy Minister Peter Altmaier says he's waiting for clarity, but regardless of who wins, Europe has its own interests to represent against Trump as well as Biden. I think that is the key thing here as well. Of course, we still do not know yet who has won this race, and for the UK and for Europe, it's really not clear as to which president might actually be in their best interests. It very much depends on which side of the political spectrum you sit. But Biden, particularly among EU leaders in France and Germany, is sort of seen as that less combative, less controversial, perhaps easier, more traditional, transatlantic-minded, sort of statesman-like president. And in that way, he would potentially bring back the Paris Accord, the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Trump has sundered a lot of alliances with the EU, and they're hoping for a more stable 4 years going forward, which they may not have.
Yeah, they certainly may not. Very quickly, Holly, any sense of where the markets are reacting at this point in time out in Europe?
Well, at the moment, of course, as we said, this is not what anybody anticipated, and the market's very much reflecting that at the moment as well. We'll have to wait and see. This could take days, weeks, months for a full result to actually be announced, depending on whether it goes to the Supreme Court, depending on these huge legal teams that both Democrats and Republicans now have lined up actually need to get to work.
Yeah. Holly Hudson, appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Out in London, they're giving us a sense of how perhaps some sense of Europe is reacting to some of the news right now. Indeed, in terms of the electoral vote, yes, perhaps Joe Biden leading for the time being, but looking into the future in some of these states he could take on, it doesn't get too enterprising on that front. We'll discuss it in just a moment, but with regards to the popular vote,